Hello everyone, Rachel Berg, Realtor with Bridgewell Real Estate Group here in Coquitlam, British Columbia, Canada. And it is April 8th, and I hope you guys are all staying home and staying safe amidst all of this COVID craziness that's still going on. I did want to do a video because on March 25th, Residential Tenancy Order was announced and it was effective as of March 30th. So it's been in effect for about a week now, and I did just want to make sure that you guys were updated with regards to how these things might potentially impact the real estate market, but also just give you a breakdown of what it means for existing landlords. Obviously, in that residential tenancy order, they're talking about eviction bans, rent freezes, a lot of questions were answered. So that is good. But starting off with what it means for buyers that are buying properties in this market. Further to the last video that I did on important things to know for people that are buying in the real estate market right now amidst COVID-19 is you really have to pay attention to the type of occupancy of the property that you're purchasing now even more than ever. You should be doing that anyways, or your realtor should be doing that anyways. But in light of the eviction ban going on right now, this is extremely important. Because it could potentially affect your possession and ability to take vacant possession of that property. So one of the matters that they noted was with regards to mutual agreements to end tenancies and notice to end tenancies or vacate a property. So one of the things that they clarified, as I mentioned, that this is effective as of March 30th. So any notice that was given prior to March 30th, that tenant is still obligated to vacate the property given that everything in terms of that notice was done properly and the proper amount of time was given. But if a notice is being given after March 30th, so if you have a deal that's happening after March 30th or has a subject removal after March 30th and it's a tenanted property, just know that regardless of anything pursuant to the contract of purchase and sale stating that vacant possession is required, or regardless of if a mutual agreement to end tenancy is signed or a notice to vacate the property with a proper notice, say 2 months is signed, it's not enforceable right now because of this eviction ban. So you don't want to be the person that, is expecting possession in 2 months and all of a sudden the tenant says, oh, well, actually, no, I'm not moving because of this eviction ban. Notice was given after March 30th. So you definitely want to be sticking with vacant properties or owner occupied properties if you can right now. Obviously, on the flip side, what this means for home sellers is that if you have a tenanted property, a lot of buyers are going to be steering away from it just because they're nervous about whether or not they'll actually be able to obtain proper possession and whether or not the tenant will move out. Even if they say they're going to move out, if they change their mind last minute, regardless of whether an agreement was signed or not, they can stay there. They can't get evicted at this particular point in time during a state of emergency. So important to know. Another thing for buyers out there, just be aware that, even if there is inventory, a lot of that inventory is exercising their right not to show. The real estate board has said that even though a property is listed at this point in time, they are not required to show it. In the residential tenancy order, they're talking about tenants' rights to restrict showings and restrict access to a property, and landlords' right to enter the property. And, it's quite clear that tenants do have the right to restrict showings. So be aware of that. Be aware that there's not a lot of inventory right now. And again, if you really don't need to buy, just hold off. It's probably better just to stay home. Going into people's houses isn't the safest thing right now. So really just ask yourself if you actually need to buy and answer that honestly. But moving on to what all of this means for existing landlords. So like I said, we have the eviction ban that was brought up. And so that's definitely something to be aware of. But there's also a temporary rent supplement that's $500 a month that the tenant can apply for that the BC government has announced. I know this is a little bit of a touchy subject because, tenants, I really feel for them. It's not like rent is cheap in Vancouver. But on the flip side, landlords, I also feel for them because housing prices aren't cheap either. And it's very likely that this $500 doesn't cover whatever your monthly mortgage payment is, let alone probably your utilities and your strata fees and things like that. So, everybody's hurting in this situation and we have to be aware of that. But with this temporary rent supplement, it's meant for the tenant to get this $500 so that it can go towards paying their rent. One of the biggest issues that I can see coming up is people, and I already actually see, is people not paying their rent and just thinking that there's not going to be any ramifications for this. And the government has made it very clear that rent is still due, and that any outstanding rent due after the state of emergency can, in fact, be a cause for eviction. And so if you're skipping out on rent just because you don't want to pay it and you do actually have the means to pay it, you will be evicted, but it's just a matter of not being able to be evicted during the state of emergency. You will be evicted afterwards. So, everybody just has to be honest in this situation. If you honestly can't pay your rent, be upfront with your landlord about it. One of the approved notice methods right now is email. So email them, put it in writing, say you can't pay it, say why you can't pay it, explain if you've lost your job. That way the landlord can kind of do whatever they can to deal with things, whether it's, trying to exercise a deferral or skip a payment option. And, again, make sure you pay whatever your rent is back when you can pay it. And try and make sure that any temporary rent supplements that are being obtained are in turn going to your landlord, because those monies are still going to be due. Just like a mortgage, just because you're deferring doesn't mean that amount of payment just goes away. You still owe that money, you just maybe can't get evicted right now. So that was one thing that they really wanted to clarify, because I think everybody is a little bit nervous about what's going to happen with regards to mortgages, rent, payment, people not paying. And yeah, I think we can all see issues coming up with that. Another thing that they clarified was rent freeze. So even if a notice was given to increase the rent prior to March 30th, that rent freeze is not going to be enforceable during the state of emergency. So once that state of emergency is lifted, that's when the rent freeze will come into, or sorry, not the rent freeze, that's when the rent increase will come into effect. So the rent freeze is just that rents can't increase right now. Counter to that, some tenants have been asking whether or not their rent can go down if their amenities in the building are closed, because obviously the amenities that the building has to offer is factored into a portion of what they pay for rent. The answer to that is no. Just because, the strata has shut down the swimming pool or the gym for obvious reasons because they're common areas. It's not something that is in the control of the homeowner. It's for the safety and protection of everyone, and it's also temporary. That's the biggest thing. And that because it's temporary, you are not obligated as a landlord to decrease the amount of rent that the tenant is supposed to pay, just because the common area are not available right now. So I think that those are really the big ones that I wanted to tell you guys about. And moving forward, we'll see how all of this plays out. I think that it will be an interesting time, that's for sure, but we will see what happens. So I wanted to let you know that with regards to mortgage deferrals and things like that, I have been able to secure John Chan at RBC to answer some frequently asked questions. So I will be posting that video hopefully within the next week. I'm hoping to film it on either Friday or Saturday and be posting it next week. And I'll definitely make sure to cover investment related issues for landlords, and maybe touch on kind of some of what he is seeing right now. But hopefully this video was helpful for you guys. I will definitely continue to keep you updated with regards to everything real estate and COVID. And if you like this video, subscribe, like, or comment below. And also if you have any specific questions that you want me to include in my video with John Chan at RBC with regards to mortgages, then comment that below too. I always look at those and I will try to add it to the video. Thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great day.